October 7th.
Am I live? Okay. Yes, it is.
Okay.
The Planning Commission meeting of September 16th, 2020 will please come to order. May I have all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Secretary will now call roll, please.
Commissioner Tolson.
Here.
Commissioner Hodge.
Here remotely.
Commissioner Rice.
Here remotely.
Vice Chairperson Castleberry.
Here.
Chairperson Mann.
Here. May I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
We have a motion by Commissioner Vice Chair Castleberry. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Commissioner Tolson. All those in favor? Oh, I think we do this by consent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll approve the agenda by consent. May I have a motion for approval of the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes. Commissioner Rice.
That is Commissioner Rice has made a motion to approve the minutes. May I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hodge. By consent, we will approve the minutes. Declaration of conflict. The Secretary will read the declaration of conflict.
If any member of the Planning Commission may have a conflict of interest or any reason why that member must abstain from consideration of any matter on this agenda, he or she should so declare at this time.
Chairperson,
Yes, Commissioner Rice.
I would like to recuse myself from item number 10 because I live too close to the project.
Understood. It says in my script, you may leave the room during the hearing, so I guess since we have one item, I'm assuming we can let Commissioner Rice just leave the entire Zoom meeting. Oh, after public statements? Okay. Commissioner Rice, did you hear that?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to keep you on until after public statements before we get to item 10. Okay. Public statements. This is the time allotted for public statements or comments on all items other than public hearing items. Are there any public statements?
Yes, Chairman Mann. I know we received one public statement. Ms. Pedroso will provide that, and if we received any others, she'll also provide that.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. Good evening, Chairperson Mann and Commissioners. We have one item that came in after 5 p.m. for agenda item number 7, which is public comments. And this is coming from Sumi Ruth Olin from Los Angeles Regional Census Center. The email reads as such: Dear Chairperson Mann, members of the Planning Commission, and the residents of Simi Valley, in the spirit of commemorating our 233rd Constitution Day on September 17, the U.S. Census Bureau would like to remind everyone, and especially our non-responders to the census, that Simi Valley will benefit the most with a complete census count. When you respond to the census, you help your community get its fair share of the more than $675 billion per year in federal money to help support your schools, parks, hospitals, streets and roads, and other programs that are vital to Simi Valley. Furthermore, businesses use census data to decide where to find their
We need a,
Can you hear me?
yeah, we're good.
Okay, let me repeat the last what it was before. Furthermore, businesses use census data to decide where to find their workforce so they can create jobs and secure employees. Developers use the census to build new homes and revitalize neighborhoods. Local governments use the census for public safety, infrastructure, and emergency preparedness. Residents use the census to support community initiatives, striving legislation, quality of life, and consumer advocacy. Therefore, for our non-responders, please don't delay. Respond to the 2020 census as soon as possible, either online at www.my2020census.gov or call 844-330-2020 or return your paper form that you have received by mail. If a census taker knocks on your door, please answer their questions and feel free to ask for their census taker identification. Remember, everyone in Simi Valley and Ventura County counts. Again, this is from Subi Ruth Olin, Partner Area Specialist for Los Angeles Regional Census Center.
Thank you very much. Any other public statements received?
There are no other public
Thank you.
statements.
Any correspondence?
Yes, Chairman Mann, members of the Planning Commission, we received one correspondence which was provided to you. This is for item 10A1. It's an email correspondence received on the industrial project on Industrial Street from Maggie Kessley, and I believe it's in opposition to the project.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing for a consent calendar. And I have continued business, known as item 10A, I believe, 10A1. So moving on to continued business. This is the time and place set for continued public hearing on consideration of TPS 692 and CUPS 827, and the determination that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. Are there any ex parte communications to report?
Yes, I received a voicemail from Maggie Kessley. I did not return the call.
May I have an oral report on this matter by staff? But actually, before we start that, so Commissioner Rice, if you're not already off, you are excused at this point. Okay. Sorry, go ahead with the report.
Yes, good evening, Chairman, Mann, members of the Commission. This is a continued item from August 5th regarding the project on 4753 Industrial Street, an industrial project. And the applicant made some revisions to the architecture, and our associate planner, Cesar Hernandez, will do the presentation. Cesar?
Good evening, Commissioners. On August 5th, the Planning Commission heard the request to construct a two-story self-storage facility.
His mic's not on?
Apologies. Good evening, Planning Commission. On August 5th, the Commission heard the request to construct a two-story self-storage facility and 3 one-story industrial buildings on a vacant 4.6 net acre lot. The Commission expressed concerns regarding the building's architectural design, mainly buildings C and D, but also buildings A and B. The Commission continued the public hearing to September 16, 2020, to allow the applicant to address the design issues. Some of the concerns from the Commission regarding were the elevations for building C and D, that they need more articulation, and that the buildings appear too flat for their height and length. And the view from Alley Avenue is that the buildings appear rather large in relation to the other buildings. The Commission has requested additional landscaping also to complement the frontage length and north elevations of Building A, along with the south elevations of Building B and C. So currently, just to recap, and this is the current location, that's the vacant lot. It's surrounded by industrial uses to the north, east, and west, and by the railroad tracks to the south. Here is north elevation of Building A, and the previous elevation is on top and the proposed is on the bottom. All of the revised elevations will include corrugated metal panel accents, patterned concrete panels, colored stucco, concrete masonry units, stone veneer, and clear glazing, metal canopies, aluminum composite panels that have added more detail and articulation to the buildings. The building's colors remain predominantly on the gray hues, but with different materials, textures, and surface finishes add variety to the buildings. For example, the applicant added aluminum composite panels to Buildings A and incorporated the stone veneer. Metal panels scoring in colors of Building A onto the other buildings, but varied with finishes. Also, to give more depth, shadow, and definition to the elevations, the horizontal and vertical scoring will be accentuated in order to provide separation between the panels that are on the same plane but have different patterns. So if you notice on this elevation here, just to kind of, you can see the cursor. You see that they had added the concrete masonry units right there, if you see it in the black. Thank you, Sean. And also the corrugated metal siding panel, which is the color of Argos. There. And the window is included with some transparent glazing. Here. Sean. And this is the north perspectives of buildings A and B. This is the rendering. Here's building B elevations. You notice here we have the brick veneer. This time it's a little bit darker. And they added some additional score lines to break up the building here. So if you have it there, you have different colors of, it looks like some hues of grayish green and the stone color itself. And the horizontal metal siding with a 4-inch box rib. And here's building B's elevation, south elevation as well. Here's the southwest perspective of buildings B and C. Now this is perspective from the lumber yard on the west side. And based on the comments from commission on the last meeting, they were looking to have this added more with some landscaping along with some articulation on those south elevations. And here's the north elevations of buildings C and D. And here are the elevations for buildings C and D on the south elevations, previous and proposed with landscaping. And here are the elevations without the landscaping from the south for building C and D facing Alley Avenue. Here it shows that they've added a concrete reveal pattern, added additional scar lines to break up the colors with white, black, dust blue, and beige. And once again, they've added the horizontal metal siding with some 4-inch box rip. And here is the south perspective from Alley Avenue for buildings C and D. Staff recommends approval of tentative parcel map TPS 692 and CPS 827. This concludes the presentation. The staff will answer any questions.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions of staff? No. Hearing none. We will now open for public testimony portion of the hearing. Would the applicant like to present the project? And I'll remind the applicant, you have 15 minutes for your presentation.
Yeah, this is Robin Murphy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I can hear you, yes.
Excellent. I am with Jackson, Maine Architecture. I'm a principal here. I also have with me Natalie Doyle, who's going to show the graphics, and Ann Judkis is here as well. Ann has been working on this through several different planners for the last year and is very familiar with the project. I want to say, first of all, thank you to everybody for their service and to the council members, and also to those of you who have set this up. These virtual meetings are always kind of unknown, and this one has gone very smoothly, so I appreciate that. And it helps us do our jobs collectively when the technology works well. So it's a testament to all of you. I wanted to kind of start with the plan. This plan is to orient. I want to also make a comment that Assessor had called out that the building A, which is a storage building, is a 2-story. It's actually 3. That building is 44 feet tall. All the industrial buildings are single-story, and they are 30 feet tall. There weren't a lot of comments about building A and B, as was, I think, Assessor noted. Most of the comments were on C and D, and we're going to kind of go through those in a little bit more detail. I want to explain that C and D have a 27.5-foot landscape buffer and trail to the north of the property line, plus some right-of-way separation and some landscaping that totals at closest is approximately 65 feet long, and so that's a big separation. We've tried to represent that in the renderings. Let's go to the elevations, Natalie. So we thought the best way to explain this would be to show what we previously presented and what we're proposing. And as Assessor went through these elevation by elevation, I will cut my explanation a little bit shorter. But in general, what we're looking at here is building A. And so this is at the top is building A's prior elevation, and here it is below, right below it at a larger scale is what we're proposing today. And you know, the main thing here is we're trying to tie these buildings together. There's not a lot of fenestration in storage buildings, and certainly not in industrial buildings either. So we're trying to concentrate interest into the corner elements, and that's what we've done in the storage building. That hasn't really changed other than the addition of some higher quality materials, ACM panels on the ends. But one of the things that I think we wanted to do was to tie the horizontal elements together better, and we did that by tying some trim lines from the upper stucco line through the horizontal metal panels, and you can see that right there, and that terminates right above the CMU. So this is kind of giving it a little bit more texture, and we've done this on all the buildings to give it a little bit more detail and texture rather than blank concrete. So this building has a lot going on in terms of materials, and we're, it's branded to our customers' image, but we're also trying to tie some of the colors and materials back to the industrial buildings on the site. So if we go to the next view, the east elevation, there really aren't changes between what was proposed previously and what is proposed currently on this elevation. We didn't feel it was necessary, and it wasn't brought up in the last meeting. If we go to the west elevation, what we've done here is we've added the ACM panels. We've also increased what we call hinges. So that's that piece there. And then there's another one and used the variegated stack stone in both the recesses, which ties back to some of the other articulations on this building. It's also the appropriate place for a material change because it's inset. We had to remove a little bit of the glazing, as you can see in the stucco portion. That was due to some conflicts with mechanical equipment. But we feel like this elevation has a lot going on. It's well proportioned, and it ties back to the other 4 elevations. So let's go to the next sheet. So this elevation is the south. Up on the top, you can see, I think one of the comments in the August 5th meeting was that there's a lot of horizontality here, and maybe it's a little less. It's a little bit more monotonous, I think, than the other elevations. So what we did is we didn't introduce a new material. We pulled the stucco material that we've been using throughout, particularly on the end elevations, and we introduced it at asymmetric parts of the elevation. And you can see it there. Also here, we've got the CMU base, and we've got the trim lines coming down from the stucco through the metal and terminating at the top of the CMU, which is a metal band. So there's a lot going on there. A lot of it is subtle. As was pointed out, the color scheme is pretty gray and white, but we look at it as kind of timeless and sophisticated rather than a lot of storage facilities will have orange or, blue or some vibrant color. We're purposely keeping this tone down because we feel it will intermesh with the adjacent context better. Let's go to the next sheet. So here, this is building building B, and Cesar went through this. Some of the same detailing that we just talked about on the on building A. What's new here is this corner element of furred metal corner that wraps around, and it creates a bookend. Natalie's circling it there with the cursor. What that does is it wraps the building, and it gives it kind of contains this horizontality. We're also using kind of a score lines there just inside of that with painted concrete. Those scores would be 2 inches wide by 3/4 of an inch. They'd be set into the form of the tilt-up, and they'd be bracketed by 6-inch scores. So you can see the darker line that is on the edge of it. That's a 6-inch by 3/4 inch deep. And just to give it some texture and shadow lines and to kind of break up this horizontality, which I think we had a lot of in the previous version. Let's move on to the next elevation. This is Building B East elevation. Here we're bookending it. We're same detailing. We're basically using that running bond, vertical bond to break up the horizontality. And then you can see previously it was essentially a blank facade with some color, but it's very horizontal. And what we're trying to do in a very subtle way is create some contrast to that horizontality with score lines. These lines probably are rendered a little bit darker than they actually would be in reality. It'd be mostly a shadow perception as you look at it. Let's move on to the next. Something else on these elevations, that there was quite a contrast between the ground floor color and then above, and we've kind of reduced that to tie it together better. We think it's a better marriage to have some of this, the kind of the calmer color palette as opposed to the contrasting color palette that we had before. The landscaping is been improved as well, and it's accurately shown to what is shown in plan by our landscape architect. Let's go on to the next sheet. Trying to add some color in the landscaping, seasonal color. So here we are. So this is building C and D. So here's the inner view, the north elevation. This is the elevation that faces the storage facility and building B. So it's kind of the entry, and there weren't a lot of comments on this, but we took essentially the same palette of material and colors and treatments and applied it to this so that it's not separate from the other elevations. Again, the score lines are, vary between 2 inches and 6 inches wide, depending on where they are. There's a stacked stone in the center still, and then now we have these going on. I'll show you the corner treatments as we wrap around the building. So in the next view, we have the east elevation. You can see the accurate landscaping is depicted there. Essentially, we've got the same color palette wrapping around the corner. It's not very easy to perceive exactly what's going on there, but it's the same treatment that we have on the inner portions. Let's move on. So this is the building C west elevation. We have here the bookend. That's actually a 10-inch. It's a significant fir treatment. So essentially what's going on here is we still have a tilt-up concrete industrial pad building, but at the corners we're adding 6-inch metal studs vertically as furring, and then we side those with a box rib that's 4 inches horizontal, 4-inch profile, and approximately 2 inches in depth. So it has a lot of profile there, and it's going to create a shadow line, and it will, the intent here is that it breaks up as the buildings turn. We've got this breakup, and then we've got the running bond again, and the same score treatment, the colors, and they all wrap up with the storage facility as well. Let's go to the south elevations. So these are the south elevations of buildings C and D. This is the view from East LA Avenue, and as I mentioned, there's 27.5-foot buffer of landscaping south of this project, and then there's a total of 65 feet of separation between it and the arterial. You can see the bookends on each building. You can see some of the same treatment. We're trying to be consistent as we wrap around the building, and I think it's really hard to tell in the first image, but it was a very horizontal building and very much monolithic. There wasn't a lot going on. There was a trim band that you can't see very well through the heavy landscaping, but essentially it was kind of there wasn't a lot going on, and when we looked at this Zebek project that we referred to, we took cues from it that we felt kind of gave it a little bit more character without making it look like something that it isn't. One of the things we try not to do in architecture is try not to make a storage building look like an office building or a industrial building look like an apartment building. So we're not trying to do that. We're just trying to give it some pizzazz and make it feel like there's some care put to it, and that it's got a pedestrian human scale to it, and it will be a good complement to the neighborhood. I think that is all those are the elevations, and I guess based on that, we'll just kind of wait for your questions if you have any.
Are there any questions of the applicant? Commissioners?
Yeah, I have no questions. This is Commissioner Hodge.
Okay.
No questions from...
Sorry, Commissioner Tolson?
Nothing for me.
Okay, I do have a question. Do you have a rendering similar that on your original time that you were here? It was on page 4, photo simulation exhibit, project viewed from westbound LA Avenue, and then conversely, photo simulation project viewed from eastbound LA Avenue. Those were my two areas of concern, that they were just huge buildings.
So here's the views we had before, and here's what we have after from LA Avenue. And I think the main takeaway here is is kind of the corner treatment. The mass in the original view, you can kind of look at that. It's a little bit different perspective, but it's very blocky and massive, and really no articulation above the 8 or 9 foot level. So what we try to do, I think based on the elevations, it's the same story. It's basically trying to create a finer tooth to the breakup of the building as it wraps around the corner in 3 dimensions. It's not a 2D elevation, but it's a 3D, and give it give it some shadow separation at the corners as well, because really that's what it was missing. It just didn't have a treatment to kind of tie everything together and bookend the buildings as you go around the site. So these views hopefully explain that.
So again, what I'm seeing on my screen, perspective 1, southeast view, we'll just call it the green car that's in the upper left-hand corner of the upper thing. I'm looking, yeah, your arrow, your cursor's right on it. That's obviously, do you have a view exactly like that of the after? Because it looks like the one that you have just down below. That's right, perspective 1, is that with your changes or is that before your changes?
The perspective below is current. It's after we made the changes. The view perspective is not exactly the same. Unless, Natalie, do we have another view that shows that the same exact orientation as the prior?
Because what I'm trying to determine is what has changed on the southeast view before, that large white area. What is that looking like now?
It's that. So what we're here is a lot closer to that building. Because that's where the major changes were made, we wanted to show it, so that you could actually see the detail. If we kept that same perspective, it would be compressed and it would be difficult to read the significant changes.
So on the top view, somewhere in that building is where that, I'll call it, looks like the buildings are split in two, would be somewhere down, like right where like the green car is or something along those lines?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. That's correct.
Do you have the same for eastbound LA? I apologize if I missed those as part of the presentation.
If I can jump in here, Natalie, eastbound would be the lumberyard view.
Nope, that's
right.
not it.
So this.
Oh yeah, it is. So the upper one.
Previously, yes, and my understanding is there's some view obstruction there that we were asked to remove to explain the building as you view it from this direction. There would be some blockage. It wouldn't be perceivable, but that's why this rendering is a little bit different than the previous one.
So in the, again, perspective 3, southwest view after, where is LA Avenue on first perspective on that page?
It's just beyond the field of view. So you'd be...
I'm assuming to the lower right?
Yeah, that's correct, yes.
Okay. Okay, that answers my questions. Are there any other questions of the applicant? Moving on, do we receive any requests from members of the public to make a public statement on Zoom? I believe that would be Maggie and Chet. Are they available?
Yes, they're available, and
Okay, I want to remind you have 5 minutes, and if you could stay up front, whether you're for or against, just for clarification.
Julia or Christie, if you could allow Mr. Belfield to talk.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Belfield, we can hear you well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And by the way, it's not Chet, it's Tim. I'm Chet's son.
Okay,
And,
my apologies.
No, that's quite all right. I get it mixed. People get it mixed up all the time. You know, when they hear Belfield, it's natural for people in Simi Valley to think of Chet. But I wanted to thank you for allowing me to speak today. I am against CUPS 827. When we spoke last month, I made my displeasure clear with you that building the largest self-storage facility in Simi Valley, 400 yards from my facility, was not something I desired. There is not a single person at this meeting that would like to have the #1 or #2 national competitor moving in next door to your business. I'm a small business that has been in Simi Valley for 33 plus years, so I'm not really excited about that. But more importantly, I also, and my family has industrial space within Simi Valley, a variety of pieces of stuff in Simi Valley. So I'm really not excited about having, an almost 1,000 unit self-storage facility moving 400 yards from my facility. But you, the Planning Commission members, are not here to look out for your best interest. You're here to look out for the best interest of the people of Simi Valley. And some of the facts that I am aware of, granting the CUPS 827 is giving away a piece of Simi Valley's limited industrial zoning areas. You, the Planning Committee, know how many pieces are still left in Simi Valley, and I think this is one of the last pieces. This self-storage facility will only create 3 to 4 jobs. An industrial building this size could create 10 to 20 times that amount of jobs. That's 30 to 80 jobs easily in manufacturing or maybe the film industry. I mean, look what Aero Environment did. Revenue and growth potential for the benefit of Simi Valley will be minimal at best. The other day I was talking with Roger Callahan. Some of you might know Roger. He is also a co-owner of Simi Lockup, and he agrees with me that Simi Valley is at the maximum capacity for self-storage units. The ratio of units to population is maxed out. The population of Simi Valley grew approximately 1% since the 2010 census. That is less than 2,000 people in 10 years. This facility will increase the number of self-storage units in Simi Valley from about 5,700 units to about 6,700 units. That's an 8.5% increase. So I have to ask, is this the best possible use for this land? And then there's some unknown factors. When you're building a building this size and that many units, you're probably going to be offering some price cuts. So you're going to be undercutting prices. That could very well hurt a small business like myself. But I don't know if they would actually do that because they have another facility less than 2 miles away from this facility. So I don't know. And lower prices is going to attract individuals to maybe loiter in the units. It is going to be, from what I can tell, a climate-controlled building. So if I'm an individual and I'm going to want to sit around in my self-storage unit, I'd rather be in an air-conditioned building than a non-air-conditioned building. Climate control, gears more towards high-end sensitive items for storage. I do not see the demand for that, although there are clearly some advantages. The other aspect is I believe the self-storage only has access from Industrial Street, although in one of the first maps you showed, I saw some red lines that were moving around the buildings, which gave me the impression that maybe there is access from LA Avenue. If there is, traffic on Industrial Street will obviously increase, but access from LA Avenue would be going against the moratorium on self-storage fronting a major street, such as LA Avenue. Signage. I saw signage on the buildings. I don't know what they're planning on doing, if they're going to be doing anything more, but I know the former tenant of this property had an entrance on LA Avenue. And
Mr. Belfield, you're over time. I'm going to ask you to wrap it up, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm just about done. With all of these negative facts and many unknowns, the question on my mind is this the best use of this land? There's not much left. How much vacant industrial land do we still have in Simi Valley? Thank you for the opportunity to provide input. Thank you for considering my request to reconsider approval of CUP S 827. Thank you.
Thank you. And up next, Maggie Kessley.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you fine, and since Mr. Belfield took some of your time, we're going to have you talk fast.
I will do very fast. Just for the record, Chairperson Mann and members of the Planning Commission, I am against the proposed CUPS 827, and I'm not going to belabor too much because my letter as well as Tim's comments have covered pretty much most of our key points. I do want to point out, as I learned, that a CUP is a discretionary permit, not by right. So the Planning Commission does have the ability to deny a project if they do not think or feel that it's consistent with the area, if there are issues with it and the way it's presented, and if it's not the highest and best use for a property. And I question a 3-story self-storage building that's 1,000 units that's truly not a necessity in our community to put something that large in that area that could possibly be somewhat of an eyesore down Industrial Street and also on LA Avenue. I just want to remind the Planning Commission that what I would love to see happen is something there that is going to generate economic vitality for the community. I always support industrial, as most of you know, because that is really what brings high-paying, self-sustaining jobs to our community, which then supports our other businesses in the community, and it allows members of or these employees to actually afford to live here. So I would just truly ask the Planning Commission to reconsider this project when you're having your deliberation. And we truly appreciate the opportunity that we have to present our opposition to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kessley. Do we have any other members of the public on Zoom?
No.
Do we receive any email comments on this item received after 5 p.m. today?
No, we did not.
Are there any comments from staff regarding statements made during the public hearing?
Yes, Commissioner, I heard one of the statements from, in opposition from Mr. Tim Belfield about the access from or to and fro LA Avenue, and that ingress is strictly emergency only.
Thank you. Any other comments from staff?
Yes, staff has no other comments.
Would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments regarding statements made during the public hearing?
I think we would. This is David Parker. I'm with Robin on the applicant side. Do you allow me to go ahead?
Please, go ahead, Mr. Parker.
So I understand Mr. Belford's concern. I don't think we're here to discuss further whether this property is allowed to be developed or not. If industrial space is so precious in the city, perhaps Mr. Belford could sell his property. We could develop that into industrial. Please note there's a 3-story building, which means we're not giving up 80, 90,000 feet of industrial. If we were to develop that with industrial product, it would only be about 30,000 feet. There would be more jobs than in a storage facility, I agree. But it wouldn't be 80 or 100 jobs, as he says. It would probably more be on the lines of 20 to 30, possibly 40, somewhere in there. When we started this project, we were told that the less traffic, the better. We thought that the storage facility was a good use for the property. Obviously, what was there before was industrial, and it went downhill, and the property's been vacant for a dozen years. So I just submit that this is ESS. They know their business. They know if there's a market for storage facilities. I don't really think they allow people to hang out in their units just because they're air conditioned, and I just think that this is the direction that the industry is going. And land is so expensive and so valuable that the 3-story units and higher use of the land is better. If you want to take the tax base for this property versus a single-story building, that would probably be in excess of what it would normally be as well. So I'm for it. We're obviously for it. We worked hard on this for several years. Robin Murphy did an excellent job working on our proposal and showing what we can do with it and what we've done to make it a better building. And I think we've met the requirements, and I would like to get an approval on this. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, we'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing. With that being done, are there any comments or questions from members of the Planning Commission? Mr. Hodge, Commissioner Hodge, Commissioner Tolson?
I have no questions.
I have a couple comments.
By all means.
It's the time for questions, correct?
Yeah, well, yeah. Do you have any questions? Commissioner Tolson?
No questions.
Okay, nobody has any questions? Now we can get on to comments. Commissioner Tolson, we'll let you go first.
Thank you. I understand that this applicant purchased this property for the sole use of putting a self-storage facility, and he worked with the city, did exactly what they were told to do, maybe build some industrial buildings to make it more appeasable, paid for all the fees, the study, the flood zone permits, etc. Did nothing illegal, nothing ugly. I appreciate all the changes they've made to make the building look good. However, last year another storage facility in town was denied because it was, among other things, on a main street, on First Street. And I think this is on LA Avenue. Two, there may not be a need for this additional storage space, in my opinion. And as relayed, the jobs will be here, will be people who aren't going to be able to afford housing. You know, we just approved some property up in Los Canyons, and none of these people working here could afford that. You know, if it was all industrial, you could have engineers, architects, accountants, those kind of things. If I understand correctly, the city gets calls on a weekly basis for companies from the valley who'd like to move here in industrial space. And, you know, we've approved other projects, and probably more in the last couple of years than we have in maybe the last 10 years for industrial space, but I don't believe that it's too many. My opinion is that, you know, maybe there's more need for RV storage. But in this case, I think that I would rather have seen it to be all industrial. And for that reason, I am going to vote no, even though I understand that this is America, and they purchased the property for one reason, and they've done all the things correctly to have it happen that way.
Thank you, Commissioner Tolson. Commissioner Hodge?
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to incorporate sort of the comments that I made at the last meeting. This particular meeting, there's nothing particularly new that has been introduced in opposition, and I you know, once again want to express my respect for the persons who spoke against it. I know Ms. Kesley. I've known her for many years. I understand that, the commitment that she has to the city, and I greatly appreciate and admire it. And of course, I don't know the neighboring business owner, but I understand his position, and I respect the comments. I made the comment at the last meeting, of course, that there are, and as I recall, I don't remember the exact number, there is an industrial component to this building, to this project rather. The self-storage unit, a self-storage business, is only one part of the project. This is a piece of land that's been laying fallow for a very long time. I would think that anybody who looked at it would immediately say, yeah, it would be the perfect place for a storage facility versus the public storage that was right on First Street. This project is not on LA Avenue. It's separated from LA Avenue by a train track, a great deal of space. There's no roadway that goes directly out onto it. I'm appreciative of the work that was done. And, I had to look at the word fenestration. I don't think I'd heard that one before. And I'm thinking that, they did a pretty nice job. We have 360 architecture, and we have more landscaping. The project is definitely a better project aesthetically than it was the last time it was here, which really was my understanding of why we brought it back, or asked for them to come back and do something. If there was no, market for this, I don't think they'd be building it. And the public storage wouldn't have wanted that massive project that they wanted on First Street, which I think would have been a darn shame. I do think that the Planning Commission is sensitive to the concept of running out of industrial land. I certainly, in our last meeting, I voted against that project in Brandeis Bardeen, which was industrial. To put it into something which I don't think, frankly, as I expressed at that time, wasn't appropriate, an appropriate use, and it should have remained industrial. So I understand, and I think that everybody understands the need, and Commissioner Tolson just accurately discussed it as well. But this is exactly the kind of property, the exact kind of location for this. It's been laying fallow for a long time. There is an industrial use component to this. It's not as large, perhaps, as the public storage portion of the project, but there is some in there, so I don't think that we should forget that. I realize this, I understand that the CUP is discretionary to some degree, and I say to some degree because I don't think it should be willy-nilly or just making a decision about whether or not we want to protect another business or make the decision economically as to whether or not. I mean, there's no analysis here from city staff with respect to economic development that this isn't needed, that it is, the kinds of things that we could actually put our hands on and say that there are findings that we could make that would suggest that this isn't an appropriate use, that it wouldn't be used, that it's going to go out of business, anything like that. So my perspective is that this will provide an ultimate benefit to the city, that there are tremendous advantages to having this project go forward. There isn't some industrial component to it. It will result in jobs, and that the applicant has done what we requested them to do when they came back to this particular meeting. I want to thank them for doing so. I wish that they had done it before. I bet they do too. But this is definitely a better project than it was when it was before us the last time. And as I recall, the only real pushback on the project at that time was aesthetic and design. So I'm going to support this project. I said at the last meeting that, I wish the whole thing was light industrial. I do. But at this point, I think that, those, to a certain extent, isn't really something that we can walk around and wave a magic wand and make it something. The realities of the marketplace, it's their investment, it's their land. That doesn't mean that I think that they should be able to put up whatever they want. I've never said that. But in this particular case, this is a permitted use, something that is, in my mind, in a perfect location for this kind of use, and there are other advantages to it. So I'm going to support it.
Vice Chair Castleberry.
I would echo a lot of Commissioner Hodges' sentiments. There is an industrial component to this project which we can't ignore. I do wish the whole project was light industrial, but we have something before us that I think does a lot for the city in terms of helping address some of the flood zone issues for local businesses and homeowners. In addition, it is a lot that has been vacant for quite some time. So I think getting something built here that does have an industrial component, that does generate some jobs in the city, is definitely a positive thing. I understand the concerns, but at this point, I am inclined to support the project, and I do want to thank the applicant for putting in some additional work to bring back the design elements that we wanted to see, as well as thank staff for their time on this project.
Thank you. I'm torn with the project. I sympathize and empathize with Mr. Belfield and Ms. Kessley. I think that and I do agree, the CUP is up to us as to whether or not we want to approve it or not approve it. However, the developer has started this process a long time ago, brought forth to the city with a lot of time, effort, energy, and I'm sure money to bring this project here. He came before planning. We went ahead and looked at it. We gave him some changes that we would like to see. He agreed to continuance. He came back, and I think he did a wonderful job with bringing back the changes that we wanted to see. I, too, would like to see this all industrial, but I'm a realist, and bottom line is we're getting roughly 36,000 square feet of industrial space. We're losing probably 30 if he was to develop Building A as his own record reflected, I think about a 30,000 square foot building. So the trade-off is we're losing 30, but we're getting 36. We're getting an industrial complex built. I understand the whole free market of competition. I would not want somebody building something, a behemoth right next to what I am. So I do certainly respect Mr. Belfield for what he says and his thoughts and his feelings. However, if the city is not wanting to do CUPs or SUPs or something, we probably should tell the developers in the very beginning before they spend time, effort, energy, and money. I think the developer has been great working with the city. The city's been great working with them from their own admission. They came to us again with a project, asked them to tweak it a little bit. They did. I would like to see the whole thing as commercial, industrial, but I will accept the 36,000 some odd feet that we get, and the mini storage place is just kind of rides for free. So I will vote at that time for being in favor of the project. I think the developer has done everything that he could possibly ask, and to deny him at this point would be unfair to him in all respects. So with that said, may I please have a reading of the resolution?
Resolution number SVPC 062020, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Simi Valley approving tentative parcel map number TPS 692 and conditional use permit CUPS 827, and a determination that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
Chair will now entertain a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution approving TPS 692 and CUPS 827 and the determination that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act.
I have a motion by Vice Chair Castleberry. May I have a second?
Sorry, second. I had to unmute.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Hodge. Call for the vote. Again, it will be a voice vote since we have people remote.
Commissioner Hodge?
Yes.
Commissioner Tolson?
No.
Commissioner Rice is abstaining. Vice Chairperson Castleberry?
Yes.
Chairperson Mann?
Yes. The motion passes.
Mr. Mann? I'm Chairperson Mann?
Sorry, Chairperson Mann, yes.
Yes, Chairperson Mann, this is Tim Hodge. I just wanted to ask if it would be more appropriate not to have Commissioner Rice abstaining, but rather not voting. abstaining is an affirmative act, I believe, and not voting would be appropriate.
Okay, the record will reflect that Commissioner Rice was not here. He's not abstaining, he's not voting since thank you. He recused himself from the hearing. Okay. So let's go ahead and, for the record, let's vote one more time, just make sure that we have a clear, concise understanding of where we are.
Commissioner Hodge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tolson,
No.
Vice Chairperson Castleberry,
Yes.
Chairperson Mann.
Yes. Now the motion passes. Do we have an appeal period? The appeal period for TPS 692 and CUPS 827 is 14 calendar days. We may now proceed to the next item. And according to my schedule here, public hearings. There are no public hearings. There are no other public hearings because we did continued business. I have no new business on my calendar. With that, we would have no public hearings under new business. Do we have any oral communications or reports?
Yes, Chairperson Mann. I'll just let you know that our next Planning Commission hearing will be on October 7th, and we expect to have a small project, a 60-unit apartment complex on Patricia Avenue. So that is our tentative agenda for October 7th. That's all I have.
Do any commissioners have anything to report?
Nothing for me.
No.
Mobile Home Rent Mediation Board?
We have no items today, sir.
Tree Advisory Board?
No items.
Then with that said, it is, I have it as 7:33. This meeting is adjourned. The next scheduled meeting is, as we already said, October 7th. Thank you, one and all.
Take care, all.